Yo, what is up guys? It is Bumfris, back with a little bit more entitled parents. Today's episode is going to be an absolute banger and I have a feeling you're gonna love this one. Before we get into the video, I hope you all can do me a huge favor and smash that like button for 7,243 Bumfris points. If you're new around here, don't forget to smash the subscribe button. Then once you've done those two things, sit back, relax, and get annoyed at some entitled parents. I work in a preschool and sometimes I babysit kids from work, especially when we are on a break. Because of everything that's going on, our preschool is cancelled. Because my sister has a disability and is immunocompromised, my whole family has agreed to go into self-isolation. Thankfully, most of us are able to work from home. We would limit our contact with all others, even other family members, to protect my sister. I was playing outside in the driveway with my brothers when a familiar car pulls up and one of the little girls, let's call her Susie, from the preschool gets out of the car. I have babysat her many times before, but never agreed to on this occasion. I assumed that the mum was going to ask me to watch her, but as I approached the car, she speeds off, leaving poor Susie there. I hadn't made any previous arrangements to watch her and didn't want to let her into my house, knowing that her father is a frequent flyer and Susie may be a carrier. I got her some water and let her sit down in the garage to get her out of the wind as I tried calling her mum and dad. Neither picked up at first until I finally got hold of a very angry mum. I explained I couldn't watch Susie and she would have to come back and pick her up. The mum absolutely freaked out, saying how she was already at work. This is a total lie. She works at a mall that I know for a fact has been closed down. I tell her that if she doesn't return within half an hour, which is how far the mall is from my house, I would be calling the CPS. She knows that we are mandatory reporters because we've already had to open a case on her. She explains that she can't, but says that she'll send her husband. 15 minutes passes and then 30. I get Susie some chalk to color with while maintaining a distance but trying to keep her happy. An hour later, I know that no one is coming to get her. I phone CPS and the non-emergency police line. The police arrive at my house in a couple of minutes and I explain to them the whole situation. Thankfully, a CPS worker is able to get there pretty quickly. The mum phones me later and yells at me for Susie being taken by CPS and them having another investigation, saying that I always watch Susie during break. I explain my immunocompromised sister and she is very offended that I even suggested that Susie might be sick. I didn't even bother to explain how she could be a carrier without showing symptoms. The entitled mum claims that she won't be returning Susie to our preschool because of my appalling and disrespectful behaviour, but I know that she is being kicked out of all other preschools. I wouldn't mind if the entitled mum never came back, but I would certainly feel bad for little Susie. Honestly, I can't say I expect much more from an entitled parent than pretty much exactly what happened in this story, but I really would have thought that in a time where people need to stick together just a little bit more than usual, that entitled parents might come to the party and actually do the right thing for a change. I guess it literally doesn't matter what happens, entitled parents will always be entitled. When my first husband, aka my children's father, split the state to keep from having to pay child support, I was left to raise my 3 children on my own. I did all I could to offer them opportunities, as well as keeping them fed and sheltered. We succeeded, and they are all grown and are all decent, responsible citizens. I had some help from my family, but there were things that children wanted that I didn't feel right asking for help with. One such thing was a twirling academy for my oldest daughter, who was around 10 at the time. It was $15 a week, but she enjoyed it immensely and it gave her a lot of confidence, as well as group/organizational experience. When the girls were due to march in their first parade, a rather large annual Christmas parade in a neighboring town, they were told that they needed to wear a particular shoe, rhymes with Ted's, or a close facsimile in plain white. Aside from the weekly fee, we had to pay for the cute, little sequin-covered costumes that they wore. We didn't have a pair of white Ted's, but a striped knockoff pair. I purchased a bottle of white shoe polish and went to work, covering the entire shoes. They took several coats, but I did a pretty good job if I must say so myself. On the day of the parade, another girl and her mother, who is the entitled mum, were talking with the Twirling Academy instructor/owner. The girl's shoes weren't anything like Ted's, nor were they all white. The instructor was telling the girl and her mother that her shoes weren't acceptable and she wouldn't be allowed to march in the parade while wearing them. The mother, who was annoyed that her daughter couldn't be an exception, points to my daughter's shoes accusingly and asks, "What about hers?" The instructor, having already approved my paint job shoes, replies harshly, "You don't worry about her. That is my business." My daughter shined like the little star she imagined she was that day. The fact that this entitled parent had such little involvement in this story just goes to show how quickly they were shut down, and also, for a change, just how much they didn't win in this story. Putting all that aside though, I can't imagine being the type of person who intentionally tries to bring somebody else down with you just because you know that you're not going to succeed. This is the equivalent of somebody pushing you off the edge of a fence, and as you go down, you grab somebody else just so that they hit the ground with you. It's absolutely needless, but entitled parents clearly do not know any bounds. So, for a little backstory, I live with my boyfriend at his mother's house because I got kicked out and we couldn't get an apartment with our no credit at the time. His mother is a whole other ball of wax, but this story is about his sister. His sister has a 5-year-old. She acts like a 3-year-old and has been poorly raised, and it's quite obvious. She is always over, so I get to see firsthand how this mother chooses to raise her kid. It's mostly, I'm just gonna watch whatever I wanna do, and you need to go into the other room and bother someone else because I don't wanna deal with it. My boyfriend cleaned out our car and put this beach hat in the garage because he was in a hurry. The little girl went into the garage and saw the hat and wanted to play with it. So my boyfriend's dad asked if she could, and I said for the day I didn't care, but I would be putting it in my closet soon because I need it for this summer and I don't want it broken. She does ruin everything after all. So she plays with it, and I thought it was cute that she liked it so much. However, she ripped a part of it. I understood because she's a kid. However, to keep it from getting more damaged, when she went home, I snuck it back into my room. The next day, I get an angry mother knocking on my bedroom door saying how dare I take the hat back, and that if I'm not using it, I owe it to her daughter to let her play with it. I simply laughed and said that I don't owe her anything and I won't be letting her play with it again since she ripped the corner of it. Her mum went nuts talking about how rude I am for stealing her daughter's childhood over a hat. I told her to go and buy one for her, and then of course she says, "You need to buy her one. Since you are the one who is taking it away from her, you owe her another." I laughed again and told her that I would not be buying a hat for her daughter and that I don't owe either of them anything. I can't believe that over something so small she is freaking out. It's my stuff at the end of the day. I don't care or like that little girl, and neither does my boyfriend. We only deal with her because we live there. The fact that over something so small means that I am ruining this little girl's childhood, well, that sucks. I don't want my stuff ruined. I don't need to have my stuff ruined just because she wants to play with it. This hat was handmade by my grandmother. I can't just go and get another one. People appall me. What is it with entitled parents and thinking that other people's belongings suddenly belong to them or their children? I swear, since I started reading the entitled parents subreddit, I've seen it so many times where a parent just thinks they can stake claim to somebody else's belongings. I don't know about you guys, but where I'm from, that's just straight up called theft. Taking somebody else's stuff without permission and refusing to give it back really isn't the best way to go about things unless you want to land yourself in prison. My boyfriend's father recently announced that he plans to retire in a few months and hand over the reins of his company to his right hand, i.e. his daughter and my BF's sister, Shania. She has been working with him for over a decade and has played a pivotal role in growing the company. She's an astute business person, and everyone agrees that she is the ideal candidate for the job. That is, everyone except for my boyfriend's paternal uncle, who is the entitled uncle, and his wife, entitled aunt. When they heard about this, they were horrified. How dare his brother put a woman in charge of his business? How could they overlook their son, who is my BF's cousin, who was obviously more qualified for the job by virtue of being a man? They didn't say it in so many words, but this is pretty much the gist of it. The uncle's son was denied a job at the company years ago on account of his erratic behavior and general a-holery. Back then, the uncle insisted that his son should be handed a cushy job at the company simply because he was family. Now, the uncle had the gall to expect his brother to make him in charge of the company when he steps down. His reasoning is that only a man should inherit the family business and that it just wasn't a woman's place. The uncle actually seemed way more upset about his niece getting the job than he was about his son not getting it. He and his wife kept repeating the same nonsense about how it was a huge mistake to put a woman in charge when male members of the family were available. BF's dad tried to explain to them why Shania was suitable for the job and that entitled uncle and entitled son wasn't. However, it's notoriously difficult to reason with the entitled uncle and the entitled aunt. They refused to listen and actually suggested that BF's dad take their son under his wing and teach him because he's so smart and he can learn really fast. He'll run the company way better than Shania, you'll see. Also, since your son, i.e. my boyfriend, isn't man enough to be your heir, you should give our son a chance. They kept making ridiculous arguments like, what about when she gets married? She'll change her surname. My boyfriend's dad tried to explain to them that whether she gets married and changes her surname or not is entirely her decision. And if she does, how on earth would it affect her business acumen and leadership skills? When my boyfriend's dad and sister shut them down, they changed tactics. Yesterday evening, my boyfriend received a call from his aunt. She went on an insane rant about how my boyfriend's dad didn't know what he was doing. She then tried to provoke my boyfriend. She told him that since he was the son, it was his natural right to succeed his father, and he shouldn't let his sister rob him of it. My boyfriend told her to never dial his number again and hung up. These a-holes knew very well that my boyfriend has never been interested in his dad's business, but I guess that since their son wasn't getting to run the company, they decided to try and provoke a feud between my boyfriend and his sister because they're the kind of sad, bitter little craps who just cannot see other people happy. Man, this is the kind of story that I'm not going to get involved in by making comments because quite frankly, I really just do not know what to say. It honestly just sounds like they've got some really backwards ways of thinking, and quite frankly, I don't know if that's something that will ever change. Whether that's a cultural thing and the way they were brought up, I honestly don't know, but regardless, it doesn't make it good enough and there's really no excuse for having that kind of mindset in the current day and age. I hope this doesn't deter her from taking over the company and that she has all the success in the future just to get back at these entitled parents. So, my mother-in-law is the queen of entitlement. Her youngest daughter is 6 months younger than my oldest daughter. She and my wife were pregnant together for 3 months. It was hell. Anyway, when the girls were turning 7, my daughter wanted a party at the skating ring, so we made the plans. My sister-in-law, who is not entitled at all, despite being raised by my mother-in-law, wanted a party at the skating rink too. So my mother-in-law convinced my wife to combine the parties. Fine, whatever. Except, she also threw a party for her daughter the night before the skating rink party, in case someone couldn't attend the real party. So, when we're all at the skating rink and the kids are having fun, my mother-in-law notices that my daughter has a slightly bigger pile of presents than her daughter. She starts complaining that people are showing up without presents for both kids. This isn't whining, she is spitting venom and trying to get the other adults to hate on those who didn't bring her daughter a present. Most of those people had attended the birthday party the night before and had given her presents then, so they didn't bring one to the second party as well. My mother-in-law said, if you're invited to 2 parties, you should have a present for each party, which was asinine enough, but then my father-in-law and his brother arrived. Now, my in-laws have been divorced for over 18 years, and my sister-in-law is by my mother-in-law's second husband. My mother-in-law goes out of her way to be nasty about father-in-law and is guilty of parental alienation when my wife was still a minor, so it burns her grits that my wife and father-in-law have such a great relationship. When my father-in-law and brother show up with only presents for my daughter, my mother-in-law goes absolutely nuts. Now, my sister-in-law has quite a load of gifts, and all of the gifts from the night before. She's enjoying herself with the other kids, so she doesn't notice that my daughter has a few more gifts than she does. This is all my mother-in-law throwing a fit. She tells my wife that if father-in-law didn't want to bring presents for her daughter, then he shouldn't have come at all. My wife had had enough at this point and finally goes off. She tells my mother-in-law that father-in-law had no idea that the parties were combined and that he is here to see his grandchild. That sister-in-law has more than enough presents at home and we will never be combining birthdays again. My mother-in-law pretended to suddenly feel sick and went home early, leaving us to clean up the party package that she insisted we spring for, but hardly needed. This is the kind of mother-in-law that any average person absolutely dreads to have in the future. I reckon one of the most important things long-term when you're in a relationship is the person's family. Not really because they may have impacted that person, but more the amount of issues that you could potentially face down the track when it comes to having children. I'll tell you what, there are some crazy grandparents out there and this person sounds like they fit the mold perfectly. Alright everyone, that's going to wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to smash that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new around here. Make sure to leave a comment down below about which story was your favorite. The fourth story about the company was definitely my favorite, so let me know which one was your favorite and why down below. Otherwise, I want to keep this outro nice and snappy. You'll see 2 videos on your screen right now that are from my channel that are absolutely incredible, and I would highly suggest that you click on one of them and watch it as soon as possible. But putting that aside, I am going to wrap things up for today's episode of Entitled Parents. I just want to say again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and I'll be coming out with an episode in the next couple of days of Choosing Beggars. Have a good day, and bye.